Namaste, Matrushree. I'm really thankful to you for giving me an opportunity to understand what Indian knowledge system is and what should be the way ahead for Indian education system. Before we delve deeper into Indian knowledge system, I just wanted to understand from you what are the present gaps in the current education model that we see.
Practically, if you see, I've been part of the mainstream educational process. I've grown up going to a mainstream school and also a college education. In fact, I've taught in a university. I've taught computer science in a university, a large university, to students. But then this realization of gap happened when I saw the students who graduated out of this educational process. So, two things were happening to them. One is either they were bored after the education when they go to a job, either they were bored with the job, or they were feeling stressed out in the professional lives. Or somewhere they felt that it was not balancing, the professional life and work life balance wasn't happening. So, when I started to look deeper, I understood that in the educational process itself, there is no input on how do we manage all these things. There is no input on how to maintain your health properly. There is no input on how do you take care of your mental health. There is even no input on how do we pay attention. Teachers tell don't, fidget, pay attention, be silent, pay attention. But then how do we actually do it? That is not taught. No tools are provided in the educational process for the mind to pay attention to things. But then the outcome expected is all these things. You have to be healthy, you have to be happy, you have to be intelligent, and all that. So you're just stuffed with content. For every 45 minutes, there is a context switching. Teacher 1 comes, teacher 2 comes, teacher 3 comes. This is how you're going through the educational process. But then a deeper realization came when we saw our own children, like Shriman and I were observing our own children going to school. And they were missing out on so many other dimensions because they were going to a mainstream school. So it was all about subjects, it was all about the content. And even if there is one PT period that will be taken away by a mathematics teacher or a physics teacher. So there is really no scope to play. And when I go to travel to cities, big cities like, say, Mumbai, Bangalore, or Hyderabad, or whatever, I also noticed that the school buildings are just like multi-story buildings with no space to play. Then I felt, Shriman and I have started feeling that a very fundamental transformation is needed in the way education is looked at. And children are losing out on so many things that they can actually cultivate during their childhood days. So I feel that the time has come to deeply look at, for many generations, many people have been doing that. We've had Swami Vivekananda, we've had Sri Aurobindo, we've had J.
Tagore.
Krishnamurti. Sorry?
Rabindranath Tagore.
We've had Rabindranath Tagore ji. And even before that, we have had our own rishis who have brought out this Upanishadic education. So that way, now it is a good time to probably, given this yuga, given these times, how do we relook at the education and how do we create something of relevance to the children of today so that they can grow to be rooted people who also have a futuristic vision for their own lives.
I just want to add a little further to that, Matrushree. If we see the youngsters today, for that matter in general society also, we are seeing a lot of corruption. We are seeing a lot of crime which is happening. There is a lot of cultural erosion. And from a sense of being a part of a larger community, these days the mindset is self-centered. So there is a lot of course correction that has to happen. And earlier there used to be joint families, and they say that it takes a village to raise a child. But with nuclear families and with modern busy routines, what is going into child? gadgets are making a lot of impression on the child. So the child is missing a holistic nurturing ecosystem. There lies a significant role where a gurukula or a school has to play, which is not happening right now. In that context, I just wanted to understand how IKS and how gurukulas can play a significant role here.
So, what do you say about the youth of today, whether it is in India or whether it is in any other country? As you say, the large part of the society is affected by corruption and many such things. One of the reasons for which, because of which this is happening, is also somewhere there is a competitive spirit built right from childhood days. Everybody compares the child with another child, saying, my child can multiply 3-digit numbers, but your child can multiply only a single digit number. My child can actually speak fluent English, but your child is making grammatical mistakes. Or my child is making grammatical mistakes, the neighboring child is making, speaking accented English, say American English or British English or whatever it is. So, this comparison has crept into the society and is affecting us as we grow up. In professional life, we are jealous of somebody, of one of our colleagues who gets a promotion instead of me, who has a better house instead of me, or who has a better car, and many such things are happening. So, because of this competitive spirit and this idea that only a few people can win, all the others are losers, this is actually damaging the self esteem and self worth of an individual. So, that way, when we look at Indian knowledge systems, the fundamental idea that is everybody is divine and potentially can realize the truth. And everything is basically an interconnected system. That inclusive thought process comes when you're exposed to Indian knowledge systems. A simple thought, for example, you sow a seed, you pour water, it grows into a tree. The trees attract clouds, and that's how you get rain, which again helps more trees to grow. So basically, everything, when you look at IKS, everything is looked at as a cyclical process. Say you have a cow at home or a bull at home. A bull is there, you have where you extract oil, right? The bull goes around, oil is extracted, and whatever waste is generated or that is consumed by the bull, right? But now what has happened is you have somewhere broken this cycle. You are buying a bull from somewhere, you are buying oil from somewhere, you are buying cow feed from somewhere else. So no part of it is within your system. Like that, many cycles have been broken, right? So even the rain, nobody is able to now connect to how this entire thing functions as a ecosystem. But when you're introduced to Indian knowledge systems like principles from Ayurveda, Siddha, or astronomy for that matter, you immediately start seeing things in an interconnected perspective. So naturally, you are mindful of how you interact with the environment, how you interact with the society. You are no more an isolated individual who can just do random things. Whatever you do has an impact on yourself, the society, and the environment. This perspective Indian knowledge system brings. And that is why people who grow up learning the Indian knowledge systems can actually be very powerful leaders in the future, who can actually transform the society, be very inclusive, take care of the needs of different kinds of people in the society. At the same time, also have a good pathway for their own self growth as well.
Yeah. I now understand that Indian knowledge system is going to address the gaps which are there in the system. And whenever I listen about Indian knowledge system, they also speak about something called Pancha Kosha Vidya. I just wanted to understand what Pancha Kosha Vidya is.
So, when we talk about Indian knowledge systems, just to elaborate that term a bit, whatever knowledge system that has originated in Bharat, uh, which has been handed down by the rishis through the Guru Kula system or the Guru Shishya Parampara, and drawing a lot of insights from the Vedas, the Shastras, that we refer to as Indian knowledge system, and that has percolated throughout the world. If you see many of the concepts of mathematics, Indian astronomy, even health sciences, many of these knowledge systems have actually traveled from Bharat to Middle East to the West. And many of the things that we do today as calculations in mathematics or astronomy, many of these concepts have origins in Bharat. So that way we call these knowledge systems as Indian knowledge systems. Now there is also a division in the Ministry of Education called IKS division that funds projects, creates avenues for people to get employed in Indian knowledge systems. But at the core of the Indian knowledge systems is what we call as Pancha Kosha. It's a framework. The Pancha Kosha, the mention of the Pancha Kosha is available in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And a little bit of elaboration is available in texts like the Tattva Bodha also, which is the Advaita Vedantic text. So when we say Pancha, Pancha means five. Kosha, you can translate it roughly to a layer or a sheath as a covering. So it is basically Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. Annamaya is to do with the physical structure. Pranamaya is to do with the energy structure, which basically helps you to function. All your organs function because of prana. So that's why when people die, they say prana has left, right? So it means that what keeps us alive, what keeps our organs functioning, what helps us to move, what helps us to speak, even excretion, reproduction, all these are governed by prana. And when we say Manomaya Kosha, it is to do with these emotions, the thought processes, and even those emotional impurities that we have in terms of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, and all that, right? We call them shadripus or six enemies, qualities that we need to overcome, like anger, greed, lust, jealousy, and all that. The Vijnanamaya Kosha is to do with the cognitive or the intellectual dimension, where we learn from our environment. When we look at a particular object, we're able to classify it. When I look at a tree, I identify that as a mango tree or an apple tree or a coconut tree because through the knowledge I've learned from childhood, I'm able to do that classification. And where this Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Koshas differ is that when you look at an ice cream, when you say, I love ice cream, you're probably operating it through your emotions. But then you look at an ice cream and say this is a strawberry ice cream versus this is blackcurrant versus this is butterscotch or whatever, then it means you're going into categories, you're processing it intellectually. Or you say that if I eat ice cream, I'll fall sick. There you're reasoning out about what is the impact of ice cream on you. So that is probably the Vijnanamaya Kosha. You're processing it through the Vijnanamaya Kosha. The Anandamaya Kosha, of course, in the spiritual text, it is defined slightly differently. But for now, since everybody identifies it as Ananda, happiness, let's have it as the spiritual happiness dimension, where even without all the other dimensions, there is a fundamental happiness that who we are. That is the Anandamaya Kosha. So when we say Indian knowledge systems, this Panchakosha becomes a powerful framework because you can design an educational ecosystem. You can design a workplace. You can design your entire lifestyle and home process, at the domestic front also. Or even at the nation level, you can look at it through the lens of the Panchakosha. If you want to, for example, now GDP is looked at as the measure of growth of a nation, gross domestic product, where the amount of produce or per capita income, all that is looked at through the, as the development of the nation. In between, people also try to introduce like gross happiness index and all. People talk about Bhutan and such countries where the happiness, and of course, there's so much controversy around this happiness index also, where people talk about some nation being more happy, and eventually we see a lot of conflicts happen in those nations. That apart, if we take even Panchakosha as an index, it's a very powerful way to look at the progress of the nation, the society, the individual, because it talks about it's a holistic framework that way. So then it also becomes very rooted in our tradition. And looking at each kosha and what activities will enhance the experience of each kosha. That can be built into the educational process, our lifestyle, raising children in the society, and all that.
And here, one inspiring thing that I observed about Anadi Foundation is that using this framework, the way curriculum is designed right from the early childhood education to all age groups. I just request you to speak a little about that curriculum and the material which Anadi Foundation has prepared.
Yeah. So when you come to the Gurukulam, residential Gurukulam at the foundation, which is near Payani, Anadi Foundation is located near Payani in Tamil Nadu. We have a Gurukulam there called Anadi Dharma Gurukulam. It's a residential Gurukulam for children above the age of 10 years. Right from the morning to the evening, the routine that the children follow ensures that there is an enhanced experience of each kosha. So there's good amount of play, there is good amount of yogic practices. Pranayama is a very core aspect of being there. And the educational content is completely based on Indian knowledge systems. Of course, it is bridged using the open schooling curriculum as well. And the curriculum ensures that children develop good cognitive capabilities. We have a very rigorous math and astronomy curriculum. So when you look at an Ayurvedic framework, say Vata Pitta Kapha, you need not just apply it to your own body. You can look at the animal or the plant. It's called Vriksha Ayurveda and Pashu Ayurveda. And of course for Manushya. The same frameworks can be used to look at their health as well. So children at the Gurukulam learn to understand the doshas, the prakriti and vikriti of even the cows that are there in the Goshala. So for example, if the cow has a loose stool, they know what is imbalance, they know what herbal medicines to give. So that way, what happens is that in a day routine, in a monthly routine, in the yearly routine, the Pancha Kosha is kept in mind, where there is good physical growth, there is good emotional growth because they get to participate in Go Seva, sing bhajans, be with fellow students. In a normal school, if you fight with your classmate, you go back home. Here you have no choice, you have to live with them. Or you argue with a teacher, you go back home. Here you have to be with the teacher. You have to live with the teacher basically. So that way, what happens is they start understanding the value of relationships and of course the value of home environments as well because they are away from home. And good robust cognitive development happens because chanting is a very important part of the curriculum. That way, the framework, one thing is, of course, the framework, but realizing it practically is what is a very crucial aspect. Because in the modern educational context, big philosophies are spoken. But ultimately, what the child is doing is the child is just sitting in the classroom for 8 hours and just by hearting the content and vomiting it in the exam. That's a great disservice to the growth of the child. I have seen in my own experience my children, I have two sons and I've seen the way they grow up. The moment we pulled them out of the regular school, that is when their actual growth started happening because so much more time and space is available for other cognitive faculties to flower. Otherwise it was just one dimension. They get good marks, no doubt about it. They've never felt unhappy in the system. But when they transitioned to the Gurukulam, because we could create the Gurukulam only later, they were still part of the mainstream education. When they transitioned to the Gurukulam, a lot more centers actually opened up. So all of a sudden, there was a very rapid growth that was happening, and we observed in the other children also. So that way, the Indian knowledge system based Gurukula education provides a very powerful possibility of transformation. And we need those courageous parents who will jump into this and then take that step. Initially, it will look as if it's a bold step or it's a very difficult step, but the rewards are much more than what the children might probably a little bit lose here and there. You won't even realize that they've lost something because actually they've not lost anything. There's only things to gain from that.
I want to share an example when everyone nightlife is becoming more and if someone is waking up early,
Yeah,
it is not
correct.
considered normal.
Correct.
So maybe the current education system also, if someone is doing it the right way, they are called
Yeah,
not normal,
abnormal. Correct.
abnormal.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I was going through the Sadvidya book, and one thing which really excited me is the Panchakosha evaluation,
correct.
where a child's energy throughout the day, child's concentration throughout the day, whether a child is mingling with everyone. I just want you to share a brief about
Yeah.
that.
We've all been part of the system which has awarded us scores and ranks and grades and all that. And we know what competition has done to us. First of all, at least I didn't belong to, I mean, later on I realized I actually don't belong to the mainstream thought process. There was somebody who had posted on social media, what is one thing that you realized from your employment? Then I looked at that and probably realized that I wasn't meant to be employed. That was my very fundamental realization that I got after being employed for some time. But when I worked in the university, of course, I didn't feel I was being employed as such, because what I was doing was not anyway connected to the salary that I was receiving, because nothing like, talking to students, teaching them, and like that. And even the environment that I worked in was far superior to any other environment that I have been part of. So that way, that was different. But as I told you, I never meant to be employed or never belonged to employment as such. So that way, when I looked at the children as well, it's really difficult to provide grades to children, because each child in the Gurukulam is so fantastic that way. Probably, I'm not sure even if their parents look at them that way, but here we actually celebrate every aspect of the child. There's one child who's not now in the Gurukulam, he's transitioned to another educational system, whose parents considered him to be not worthy of any kind of learning. But he was a celebrated child in our Gurukulam because we knew his unique talents, and that was what was given maximum expression in the Gurukulam. Like that, there are different, talented children, far superior from the average, school going child. Probably they also were belonging to that category. But once they came into the Gurukulam, the different centers have opened up actually. So that way, we wanted to create an evaluation tool which is holistic in nature, not just capture marks. So what we do is we have tests. So because the Indian educational process, if you see, many people talk about democratic education, freedom in education, not teaching the child anything, all that is there. There are different philosophies that thrive around us. But if you look at the Patashalas or Vedic knowledge systems, very rigorous knowledge systems, and there were appropriate evaluations, oral, situational. So people were evaluated by the society, by themselves, self evaluation by the society, by the Acharya, and of course, the larger context as well. So that way, evaluation is a part of our Gurukulam. But what the children do is that whatever marks they get, they communicate it to their parents over a phone call. They themselves do that. But the report card that we send to the parents has the Panchakosha framework, right from preschool stage. Here, even at the Anadi Indic preschool, which is Anadi Bala Gurukulam, there also will be including the Panchakosha report, where we go into each dimension and then talk about what the child was when they came into the Gurukulam, and here and there provide some insights on what interventions we have provided and how the child has now performed in those dimensions. So that way it's not about marks. See, for example, we often quote this. When a child, say, switches off the fan in the classroom and goes out, are you recording the sensitivity of the child towards, say, saving electricity or the environment? It's not recorded anywhere. And you're always telling the child that, marks are what is important. Then will the child even be motivated to do this act of kindness? Right? Then you have one kindness day, and that is the only day when the child has to express kindness. Or you have one forgiveness day. That day you celebrate, everybody you go and say sorry, 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 like that. That is not going to help. You need an ecosystem where these values are nurtured and then positively reinforced, saying that this is what we value. So if a child is just studying there but then not valuing the seva, That also we sort of cognize, so that the child develops aspirations and interest along multiple lines. So that's where the Panchakosha evaluation report, that includes like whether the child is able to run, what is the quantity of food and quality of digestion that they have, how do they treat their fellow students, how do they treat plants and animals, how they are interested in bhajans or even simple meditation, how do they show their reverence to the devatas in the Gurukulam or the gurus in the Gurukulam, and how do they interact with their own parents. Overall, are they happy or are they moody? All this is recorded in the Panchakosha report. And what we've seen is the transformation is that the parents' life gets transformed by looking at the Panchakosha report. Now they're saying, why don't you give one something that we can also do? That's why we created this Panchakosha pathway book, which is for adults. Anybody, not just the parent teacher, but any adult can look at this and understand their own lives through the framework of the Panchakosha.
Matrushree, when I see the team of Anadi, both Shriman and you has taught in the premium institutions of India, and you continue to be guest faculty in IITs also. And after taking classes for graduating students and all, and the other team members also, they are from IITs, Amrita University, National Institute of Design. If they had chosen material pursuits, they could have earned a lot. But each one of them devoted themselves completely to Indian knowledge systems, and they have come up with this curriculum. I really appreciate and acknowledge the priceless work the team has given for the nation building process. And suppose if I am an educator who realized the value of Indian knowledge system, so how do I orient myself to Indian knowledge systems?
Yes. So, if you are an educator and interested in getting a taste of Indian knowledge systems, we have a lot of self paced courses at Anadi Foundation online, which you can take. And we also have tied up with different universities, and courses are offered as part of the university curriculum, where basic introduction to IKS is given, or if you are specialized in, say, math or well being sciences and many such things, there are also curricular courses that are available as an educator to take this forward. And couple of times we also do residential programs where you can come to the foundation, the ashram, or somewhere outside and also get yourself trained on some of these knowledge systems. And many a times we do see that even parents are interested in this, because if they have to teach their children, they need to learn it first. So many of the enrollments actually come from the parents. So we have self-paced courses. Our website has the details. Time and again, we keep offering many of these courses. So that is one way as an educator to get to look at this. And of course, this is all supported by the books, as you said. The volunteers at Anadi Foundation have spent their time and energy creating. And when we look at the IKS books, it is first of the kind in its country. Nobody has been able to create till now. Mainly because somebody had to take it up. Before we wrote those books, we were looking for books along these lines, but somehow to present it to children, it wasn't available. Lot of research books are available in Indian knowledge systems at the higher education level, but to bring it to the level of the school children, somebody had to do it. Somehow it was not done till now, for whatever reason. And we are definitely grateful that we've been able to offer it to the society. And now we've created courses, educator training, school teacher training, where schools can adopt that as well.
I was going through Sadvidya book and I'm really fascinated with the number of activities. Each of the activity is planned in such a way that it will uplift one dimension of the child and also in a subtle way impact the behavior process of the child. As it is said that the behavior and personality of a child is framed in the first 7 years of child's life. So can you discuss briefly about Sadvidya book especially?
Yes. So the Sadvidya curriculum is basically a manual, a full curriculum content, which will help somebody to take forward the preschool education, building on Indic knowledge systems. And about for every age group, we have 300 days of activities over there, illustrating simple principles like Panchabhuta, Panchakosha, yoga, pranayama, and shadrasas, Ayurvedic principles, astronomy, Amavasya, Paurnami, many such things. in all in an activity oriented manner, and also focusing on three languages: English, Matrubhasha, and Sanskritam. And again, based on the Panchakosha framework, where there is a good amount of emphasis on the physical body in terms of activity and food that they eat, and also many other dimensions, cognitive dimensions. Lot of chanting is there. A lot of stories are also there which illustrate key values. As you said, values have to be built right from the younger stages. And just as children are getting impacted at a very young age, children also have a lot of memory capacity at the very young age. So many people think that we should teach them analytical and reasoning skills from the younger ages. That can wait a little bit. The main thing is to leverage on the memory capacity of the child. So give it as much chanting as possible. What we learn at that age, we remember for a lifetime. So whether it is Bhagavad Gita or some Shanti mantras or Ashtanga Hridayam or whatever, Leelavati, Amarakosha, Ashtadhyayi, or you have Telugu Padyas, all that if you give it to the child, happily they will learn. You will see that when they are walking, they will chant. When they are taking bath, they will chant. When they are eating, they will keep doing it in their head, right? So that's the best way to start with. But otherwise, the Sadvidya curriculum has content for each kosha as well. And a lot of, we are creating books which the children can take as part of the preschool. Now we are starting, of course, the Hyderabad one is coming, and many more such preschools will also come in the future.
Matrushree, when we are speaking about preschools, in mega cities especially, even for a preschool, they are charging a couple of lakhs per year. Whereas these days we see many of the parents who want to homeschool their children.
Correct.
And couple of parents are coming together and they are themselves starting their own play school. I guess the Sadvidya curriculum can be a great value add to them.
Correct.
And if we can facilitate couple of training programs for them, these play schools can happen in many of the residential gated communities as well.
Correct. Very true. So now we are evolving a model where people can take this up as a pursuit. Those who are interested, parents can come together. Now we also have a books training program, and also some facilitation is available. So the popular word that people speak here is, I think it's called franchisee. Somehow, I've been avoiding this word. I'm not comfortable using that word. It will not be a franchisee thing for sure, but it will be something that people can take forward, which where the lot more conviction. You will not just be a manager in that process or a owner of a space, but you will be much more involved. It will be a personal transformation for yourself, and then bringing the teachers together and then imparting that education. So that model, we are working it out, and slowly I think it will be rolled out once we gain confidence with this upcoming preschool.
So these days, everyone feels that quality education comes with a higher price. But whereas throughout our civilization, we saw kings leaving their palaces behind, going to a hermitage under the tutelage of a guru. They used to stay there for a couple of years amidst nature, do all the works, and that helped them transform into a role model leaders for the country. And so to establish a quality education center, all we need is rightly oriented youngsters and parents. With a simple facility also, they can help the child grow in all dimensions of life.
A tree is enough to actually start a preschool in my understanding. But of course, we need, given this modern society and thought process, of course, we'll need infrastructure and all that. That said, as you say, there's one very interesting episode that Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam used to mention. So it so happened that an alliance was fixed for a girl with a boy, and then after a few days, I think the girl's family rejected that boy's family, saying that they sell food, so we can't give the girl there in those times. So selling food was considered to be some kind of a papa, where how can somebody even put a price tag to food? But now, like, food is one of the leading businesses. So similarly, education and healthcare, it was looked down upon to charge money. But how was it even supported? That was supported through the community and the grants given by the Rajan of those times, right? The land grant, the cow grants, and people who graduate contributed back to the educational institution. So these were the mechanisms to support. So if there are well-meaning people around us who earn well and who are ready to put their money for this cause, I don't think we need to charge hefty amounts from the parents. Maybe if you feel only if you pay, you will be committed to the process, you can pay something always. Or the parent themselves, as a seva, they can, or as a dana, they can donate and keep sustain the school and thought process, right? So, but it actually, if you look at it, it actually doesn't take so much to, when you have the right set of people, education need not be such an expensive affair after all. For example, our Anadi Dharma Gurukulam is free of cost. Swadharma Gurukulam is free of cost. And somebody is supporting this. There are enough good people. You just as, for example, Krishna sent Duryodhana and Yudhishthira to look at the people around them. And Duryodhana was not able to find one good person. Yudhishthira was not able to find one bad person. So it all depends on how you look at the society. So society is filled with people who are ready to contribute. And if they know that you're doing good work, they come forward and support your initiatives. And it need not be a mega initiative. It can be a micro initiative where that micro initiative needs to be sustained over a period of time. That is easily possible in today's times. You just need to find good ways of doing that.
Also, Matrushree, right now in schools we have different curriculum called CBSE,
Yeah.
State Board, ICSE. And even though at times the leadership understands the value to gradually move towards Indian knowledge systems, especially in National Education Policy 2020, there was clear mention that a part of the curriculum should be based on Indian knowledge systems. But the schools doesn't have that orientation for that. And if someone has a school and they want to gradually incorporate IKS into their school, what do you suggest?
So Anadi Foundation, as you would have observed, has created books right from grade 1 to grade 12. So we have one series called Amazing IKS for children from grade 1 to 4. Then we have this Bharatiya Vijnana Pravesha series, which brings Indian sciences and mathematics up to grade 8 level, 5, 6, 7, 8. We also have the primer series, which is to do with Ayurveda, Nakshatra Vidya, Science of Yoga, and Bharatiya Ganita. You can start from grade 8 onwards or grade 9 onwards. We also have an Indic Principles of Leadership book, which can be used right from grade 8 to 12, up to 12, grade 12. And we also provide teacher training how to take these forward. Now, in this year, we are now in 2024. And more than 15,000 to 20,000 students have already adopted our books. So, what we do is that we set up a meeting with the school administrator and we explain to them the benefits of an IKS curriculum, how it is aligned with the NEP, and the broad content of our books. And then we say that we would train their teachers to be able to take this program forward. So, if they allocate 1 hour per week, or say, for example, every alternate Saturday, if they allocate 2 hours, then they will be able to cover the content of these classes on an yearly basis. And a lot of this programs are happening, and teacher training is also happening, benefiting these students. So that way you can approach us, you can write to us if you're an educational leader wanting to implement this in your school. You can write to us, we'll get back to you, give a presentation, and then there is a small fee associated based on, because we need to print books and give it to the children. And if it is acceptable to you, we are more than happy to train. We want as many schools as possible to adopt without the cost being a barrier, of course. So very nominally we've priced it. So that way, and many schools that have adopted have already started seeing the benefits of this. So, in fact, we welcome schools to adopt this because NEP clearly says that knowledge of India should be brought to the children through books, videos, programs, workshops. There are so many other mechanisms to bring it to the child as well.
Matrushree, I heard that lot many Indians who are abroad are showing lot of response to IKS. So how did it happen and what is their feedback like?
See, as the common phrase goes, anything in the backyard, we don't realize the value of it. But when you leave the backyard, you realize it has so much value. So, similarly, what has happened is that people who live abroad, they miss Bharat so much that they want every possible way to connect to the roots. And IKS has become a very crucial aspect of this because one thing, of course, raising children in big cities, we were talking about the challenges. But raising children with, say, Indian origin children in other countries is the challenges are very, very different. For example, now people are talking about, say, wokeism and gender issues, right? Right from age 12 onwards, there are many states have even approved things like puberty blockers and all that. So the challenges are very different from what you have in Bharat. And for the child to grow up in that environment but still has to enshrine Bharatiya values, it means that the inner world and the outer world are constantly going to be in a conflict state. For example, the depiction of India has been always very poor in certain textbooks in certain states. So, for example, the California textbook issue was got a lot of visibility. Even many Bharatiyas had to work on that, and many people, well-meaning people, had to really work hard to point out the contrasting or very conflicting things where Indians are shown in very poor light in textbooks abroad, right? And this is constantly being fed to the children abroad, that there is a lot of fear in the minds of parents who have gone from here. See, they have gone after a certain age. They probably went after their masters. They worked there. They did not have to face this kind of a thing. But when they're raising their child there, it's a different game altogether. So they're very keen to protect their children from these influences. But at the same time, the child should be made capable of thriving in that environment also. Because when they live in the US, for example, it has a wonderful educational ecosystem. The amount of funding that's available for research, the way you engage in research, very objective scientific processes are all inculcated. They grow up to be very intelligent and brilliant children, right? So that also they have to imbibe, but at the same time there are also these elements which they have to protect their children from. So that is when the rooting in the Indian knowledge system is helping the people there, so that they know where they have come from. That identity becomes helpful, so that they become more comfortable in their identity, and with that identity they interact with the world. So we do see, we have traveled to many cities in the US. We've done a lot of programs in different cities, and we've seen a lot of parents waking up to it. We also did a self-paced course. I mean, we also did an online IKS course. We had more than 40 people register from the US. And consistently, many children are also seeing, more than 200 children now have bought our books, have attended our online live sessions. We also have an IKS Olympiad, which probably children from abroad can also take from now on. A few requests have come from Germany, Netherlands, Australia. It's only, our reach is only limited by the time that we have and people that we have to take it forward. But we do see that there is a lot of thirst in other countries.
Yeah. Matrushree, one prejudice that some people have is that whenever we speak about Gurukulam or Indian knowledge system, some of them say that this is something of the past. What is its relevance to the modern times? And does it have any space for the modern science? As someone who knows, who has touched the depths of both deeper Indian civilizational values and literature, and also someone who has seen the latest modern technology of the West. So I want you to address on that.
Yeah. Say, for example, now people are talking about things like Neuralink, right? Where you can keep a chip and then neurotransmitters can be secreted so that the brain can function properly. So the Siddhas for long time, for thousands of years, have been talking about Neuralink kind of technologies, but though not in the form of a chip, but probably through the yogic processes, through the herbal medicine, through Aushadhi. They have been talking about such processes. And we are also getting there where we have critical gaps in engaging with such technologies. For example, space travel. Shriman has spoken about Siddha and space travel in one of the videos, where he clearly points out how, for future space travel, you need to, for example, in this body, you need to go to some other planet or graha or to the space where the environment, what you breathe, everything is going to be different, right? And food is not going to grow. The same kind of food you can't grow there. Okay, people are trying, which will happen eventually. But if you have to grow that kind of a food, if you need to that bring out that biodiversity, it means some research is needed along those lines. Our Siddhas, when you look at the Siddha literature, it actually talks about interplanetary travel. Very comfortably, they talk about it. They talk about how to survive on other planets, how what breathing practices you can do, what aushadhi you can have, how do you even grow plants. All many more such things are mentioned. But when you read it, it will all look very magical and fantastic, like a sci-fi thing. You won't be able to realistically relate. But when you actually look at space research, that's what they would be talking about. What are the gaps? We need to be able to occupy another planet, given these resources. So you wouldn't be able to believe that the siddhas can actually solve those problems. But we do see, okay, at a very simple mundane level, now we see COVID issues we have been able to largely solve through Ayurveda Siddha, right? Ecological issues now we are able to solve through natural farming, organic farming, other kinds of agricultural practices. Cow dung is a very important aspect of sustainable living, right? Because, for example, at the ashram we use cow dung log based cooking, so we don't need to use LPG. Even cow dung based fuel can be done, biogas, gobar gas can be done. Even probably hydrogen generation can come from cow dung itself, right? We have also experimented with cow dung based bricks, very strong ones. Now we have given it to research to test the strength of cow dung bricks in different types we are actually bringing out. So that way, when we say Indian knowledge systems, it's not something of the past. When we say Sanatana itself, it means that it is ever relevant, eternal. So it is always going to be relevant that way. Just that the way we look at it, package it, offer it as an educational content, what research we engage will change according to the times. Now, many people are talking about, for example, Shriman was one of the first few people to probably teach yogic neuroscience. Now, many institutions are offering courses on the combination of neuroscience and yoga. So these practices do have a benefit, just that we need to study them, spend money, time to study them. So what I feel is that anybody who takes IKS seriously now will probably be a global leader in the future. You just need to trust these words and take that step. That's all. Yeah.
Regarding Sanatana, Matrushree, I asked someone, and he mentioned that Sanatana meaning is it's Chirapuratana and Nitya Nutana.
Very true.
It is age old, but
Ever relevant.
and ever new.
Very true.
And if you see the past, if you see metallurgy, if you see Ayurveda, astronomy, so medicine and all, so there's a lot of research that went into it through by our ancestors. But generally, when they speak about Gurukula, people imagine a rishi with beard underneath a tree,
correct.
2-3 children chanting and all. But we have to acknowledge that our ancestors are scientists.
Yes.
The depth which they have pursued every dimension of human life, very few civilizations have done that.
Correct.
So if we can rebuild that and convey that in a scientific manner, the amount of self-confidence that this nation will get is beyond measure. And I really appreciate the efforts of Anadi Foundation. Why? Because this is the greatest of nation building activity that you are up to, and this is a very deep work for which nothing other than devoting our life for it. Whenever I speak with the volunteers and team of Anadi, they just mention that I devoted my life to sadhana and Indian knowledge systems. And for for a youngster in these times to say that, the amount of work that you are doing is beyond words. And on behalf of this great nation, I humbly bow to everyone who is associated with Anadi Foundation. And I also appeal to every viewer to come join this nation building process. Add whatever you can to this thing, be it your time, in contribution in any way possible. And I wish Anadi centers and Gurukula starts across India. And especially this movement is on the shoulders of young India.
Very true.
Anyone who are deeply committed to the cause of nation building process, I humbly appeal to all those youngsters to come and join this movement. And thank you so much, Matrushree. Thank you.
I just want to close with one note when you say the Vedas and the scientific process. When you look at modern science, it had to be kept away from religion because the religions of the West were mainly book-based religions. They had one book based on which they had to follow that. Just okay, I don't have a conflict regarding that. But what I'm saying is that science could not be based on that one book. So they had to separate religion and science because when we say pramana, it includes pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, agama, arthapati, and anupalabdhi. Many such pramanas are there. So agama or shabda pramana means you are taking the words of somebody as sacrosanct and following that. So most of the Western, when you say Western religion, it's based on that kind of a knowledge system. And that is why science, which is based on experimentation, which is based on your own observation, all had to be separated from religion. But when you look at the Bharatiya philosophical systems, which we call Darshana Shastras, you have all these pramanas. So that way, it's a very deeply scientific process. So there is no dichotomy there in terms of Vedas versus science, religion versus science, because whatever we've practiced as religion or whatever we practiced as Sanatana Dharma was essentially a scientific process that came through all these knowledge sources, not just the word of the Rishi, but through personal experimentation, through inference, through comparison or analogy, and through many more scientific frameworks. So that way, participating in these Indian knowledge systems as a youngster becomes a very important aspect, because only when you engage with it, you actually realize the power of this. One can be an armchair critique, but that is not useful for the society. Even skepticism, unhealthy skepticism is not useful. But even a little bit of engagement you do, right? See, I always tell people who talk about, armchair critics about charity. But have you donated 1 rupee for a girl child's education? If you haven't done that, where are you? Right? Similarly, if you haven't engaged even a little bit with Indian knowledge systems, then and being an armchair critique of it and some hypothetical future that you're talking about, the child will lose out on, all that will not happen actually. Just a simple engagement. You start somewhere, you'll always feel that your life is getting accelerated through that. So that way, as you said, there is a call to young people to engage with Indian knowledge systems. And if you find Anadi to be a worthy platform, we have all the means to engage with you.
Also, one point I missed out, Matrushree, if I consider myself, I got the education of the times today. So if I take away the intellectual knowledge that I have, I hardly have any other skill. So whereas someone who is part of the Indian knowledge system education, they have a lot of life skills.
Yes.
In a way, if we have to gainfully employ the vast majority of the population that we have today, if we have the education through Indian knowledge systems, they will have a holistic learning, who are self-confident,
Yes.
who have the character. Swami Vivekananda rightly mentions that strength of any nation is the strength of character of its youth.
Yes.
So through IKS, we will be able to build that. And
And
with
a new
holistic,
Josh will be built in your life actually when you engage with this, because it's something new and cognitively, you can, lot of challenges will be there. So it's rewarding that way.
so through IKS, we can address the problem of unemployment also, is what I
Definitely,
wanted
definitely. And even if you are unemployed, you will still be okay with that, because you have so much more to think about and engage with. Like if you know Sangeetam, you will really not care about, you don't want to be employed basically. You need time for practice. You need to be a good musician, right? Whether you earn or not. So
that way,
it
I
takes
feel
out
that
the burden of unemployment from your head.
IKS will convert employees to entrepreneurs, is what I feel.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Matrushree. And I once again thank Anadi Foundation for the wonderful work that you are doing. And I feel considered blessed to be a part of this nation building process.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.